The NDIS scheme was introduced under the Julia Gillard government about 10 years ago.
The scheme will respond to each individual's goals and aspirations for their lifetime, affording certainty and peace of mind for people with disability and their carers alike.
The NDIS requires property to be specifically built for people who have access to the NDIS, and the drawcard here for property investors is that the rental returns are paid for by the government and the returns are quite attractive. However, like most things, there are trade-offs when comparing to other forms of property investment. In this video, I'm going to focus on applying for NDIS loans. I'm going to go over the common issues that investors face when seeking finance, and at the end I'll provide some of the solutions to getting that NDIS loan application approved. The biggest problem that investors come up against is that their lender will not lend for the purpose of funding an NDIS property. There are a couple of reasons for this. Firstly, resale value. When a bank looks at providing funding, one of the major questions that needs to be addressed is, if the borrower gets in trouble, can we sell the house so that we don't lose any money? From the lender's point of view, if they're forced to sell the property in a down market, they may have to discount the property to a point where they don't recuperate all of the funds that they need to at least break even. Secondly, lenders won't use the potential rent from having the place rented out as an NDIS property. Instead, they go off the market rental for a standard investment property of a similar amount of rooms. This is a massive difference, and it will often mean that the lender will not lend enough money for the purchase to be made. The third major hurdle is that the lender you go to is going to assess it as a commercial deal. Basically, that means you need a much larger deposit, higher rates, and you'll get a shorter loan term. This will often mean that the NDI purchase cannot be done. Okay, so let me talk about some of the lending solutions that are available. I've recently been researching loans as I've had to help some clients out recently with NDIS, and I've been surprised to learn that NDIS loans have come a long way in the past 18 months or so. To my surprise, there are lenders out there that'll lend to 90% LVR. This would normally mean that you need to put in a 10% deposit plus costs. There are a couple of things to take note here. Your financing costs will be elevated as you're putting in a small deposit. For example, you're probably going to need another 10% to cover things like stamp duty, your LMI or risk fee, and other closing costs. Added to that, valuations can often come back lower on these properties as the banks want to be conservative here. What does this mean? You need to have spare cash to mitigate this risk. You don't want to spend all this time trying to get this deal done, then at the back end you realize that you don't have enough cash to complete the deal. The rest of the details about these sorts of loans make them very similar to a normal investment property. You can do interest-only repayments, you can have an offset account, you can have a 30-year loan term to maximize your borrowing power. Added to this, the interest rates are only slightly higher than a standard investment property loan with certain lenders, which is very surprising. Some lenders will even allow you to use the equity on that first NDIS property that you purchased to then go and purchase a second, just like purchasing a normal residential property. Overall, it's actually a lot easier to get approved for NDIS loans than what it was previously. If you're interested in NDIS loans, feel free to find us below and get in contact.